So now that conservatives and really just normal non-woke people in general have been screwed over by Bud Light, we have our eyes peeled for other brands who have decided to delve into liberal politics while happily running the risk of pissing off their actual customers. And turns out, even before Bud Light committed their big Dylan Mulvaney transgression, Miller Lite put out an ad that was apparently supposed to commemorate Women's History Month, but really was just another cheap shot at straight men. Again, the bulk of their actual customer base. And while this Miller Lite ad is far less egregious than a biological man in a prom gown mocking actual women, it's still not great. Drink it in.
Look at this wild.
It's time beer made it up to women. So today, Miller Lite is on a mission to clean up not just their but the whole beer industry's Miller Lite has been scouring the internet for all this and buying it back so that they can turn it into good for women brewers.
First, we turn the bad into compost. Then we feed compost to worms. Push out beautiful fertilizer.
That good helps farmers grow quality hops,
which is then donated to women brewers to make their own really good
But there's definitely more out there. In your attic, in the garage, in your parents' basement. Send any you got into Miller Lite and they'll turn that into good too. So here's to women, because without us, there would be no beer.
The plague of wokeism strikes again, and I'm a little heartbroken because Miller Lite is, or was, my beer of choice. That being said, I will still take man-hating feminism over the trans propaganda and female mockery brought to us by the Bud Light Mulvaney partnership. I mean, at least Miller Lite had the decency to use real women, which leads me to believe they must be biologists. But their ad is apparently supposed to serve as some kind of an apology or a reckoning for past advertisements featuring scantily clad women, like somehow that's offensive to women. And while I don't speak for all women, I can tell you seeing pretty women in beer ads doesn't offend me. If your core base is straight men, then featuring attractive women isn't just expected, it's business savvy. The messaging from the left on this issue makes zero sense. It is logically bankrupt. The same group of people who applaud trans women in bikinis on the cover of Sports Illustrated, or Lizzo with her fat rolls hanging out also in a bikini on social media, are offended by actual women with fit bodies posing in bikinis from the 1970s to date. So if you're fat in 2023, it's aspirational. But if you were fit and pretty from 1975 till about 2020, you were being exploited? And as far as I know, those women in the classic non-woke Miller Lite ads weren't forced to do it. It wasn't bikini and beer slave labor, folks. But Miller Lite knows that. This isn't about that. This is about activists within the company who have taken it upon themselves to shame both men and women for preferring to look at swimsuit models and ads than whatever the hell the political point is they are trying to make here. We, the consumer, don't need butch women in ugly sweaters and overalls lecturing us about sexism or misogyny or feminism when we really just want to, I don't know, drink a light beer at a ball game, for crying out loud. We are sick and tired of this crap being shoved down our throats. Just ask Bud Light. They got the message loud and clear whether they want to do something about it or not. And though this Miller Lite feminist ad came out before executives saw the Bud Light fallout, that's not an excuse. You should know your customer base, Miller Lite. You think Target would have me, Tomi Lahren, modeling their line of Pride apparel? Yeah, probably not. Miller Lite should have known better, and if they didn't, they better start hiring better starting now. And for the liberals out there squawking about the ridiculousness of conservatives being offended by beer ads, let's not forget, y'all literally canceled syrup, rice, and butter. So get off your high horses. You invented cancel culture. We're just following your lead.
I spent the majority of the Trump administration hating that man. I couldn't tell you why I hated him exactly, but I could definitely tell you that I hated him. But as 2 weeks to slow the spread turned into 2 months and counting, I did start to have some questions. No one was talking about opening up again, getting people back to work. And then summer 2020. I was told, we were all told, both implicitly and also explicitly, that I could go out and riot or protest, but I still couldn't go to work. For the first time in my life, I could draw a clear, undeniable line from my current state of suffering, my current quality of life, to Democrat policies. And the Democrat Party has proven me correct every single day since walking away.
Amen. Natalie Beisner was a lifelong Democrat, self-proclaimed liberal zealot, if you will. Liberalism clouded her mind so much she drove 100 miles to vote for Hillary Clinton. But then, in the summer of 2020, something changed. She had that epiphany, a come-to-Jesus moment, and walked away from the Democrat Party. And I'm so happy that she joins me now. Natalie, it's so great to have you, and I'm so happy that you walked away from the Democrat Party. I really want to pick your brain as to all the reasons why.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Tomi. Your interview with Trevor Noah was a big influence on me as I was walking away. So I'm really honored to be here.
Oh, that's so kind of you. I really appreciate that. You know, walking away from the Democrat Party is something that we've seen from a lot of folks over the last several years. I think that 2020 really was a turning point for a lot of people, especially because of COVID. I lived in California at the time before moving to Tennessee, and I looked around at all these people who were basically afraid to go outside, and they were waiting for the government to tell them that they could breathe freely. And I thought that that would be more of a turning point for more people. Sadly, I was mistaken. But I want to talk about, you know, before you walked away. I want to talk about getting into the mind of a liberal, especially a liberal that is really a self-proclaimed zealot, as I said. You said in your video that you hated Donald Trump. You didn't quite know why you hated Donald Trump. Do you think that it was the media that had the biggest influence, your friends, your family? What was it that had that liberal message so ingrained in your mind?
Well, I'm more convinced than ever, especially since making that video and having it get some attention online, both negative and positive. From the negative attention, I'm more convinced than ever that the left is a cult. And it was certainly the media. I think a lot of Americans are peripherally involved in politics, and it's hard to keep up with what is real news, what's fake news. And it's easy, especially in Southern California. I was an actress for a long time. It's easy to just believe the media, especially if you've never had any reason to not believe them. And then, of course, after I walked away, I realized how much I'd been lied to about Donald Trump. Seeing the full Charlottesville press conference was a big eye-opening moment for me. That he did not, in fact, say very fine people on both sides, including Nazis. So it was the media, and it was the people that were around me. And I just didn't question it. And I'm sorry I didn't question it sooner.
Well, it's you and a lot of people, and unfortunately, a lot of people are still not questioning what they see and what they hear. I mean, the examples lately have been countless. I'm wondering, because now we have the Durham report, that we know the whole Trump-Russia collusion thing was a lie. It was a hoax, no collusion, no obstruction, no quid pro quo. We know all of this was total BS. But back during that time, during the leading up to the 2016 election and through the entire Trump presidency, were you convinced that Trump was a Russian agent working on behalf of Putin?
I'm embarrassed to say this, Tomi. I didn't even follow it at all. I didn't know. And so could I have told you, oh, sure he is. But I just, like I said, I knew he was bad. I saw the clips. I saw that he was brash, and just, I could not tell you why he was bad specifically. I couldn't tell you anything. Was he a Russian agent? And here's why. Obviously, I couldn't tell you that. No one can, because there is no evidence that he was. But it's just, I think it is just blinders on, and you believe what you want to believe. And it's easy to do right now as a leftist because you have Hollywood, you have all of the media. And even right now, I don't think that the news coming out about Trump right now, I don't think that it will change, unfortunately, a lot of people's opinions of him. It's so easy to stay with your blinders on.
No, you're right, and that's what I'm concerned about as well, that every time we get a smoking gun about Biden family corruption, pay to play, you know, the classified documents that he had in his flipping garage, and people just don't seem to care about any of it, including how wrongfully they have gone after Donald Trump. People don't seem to care, but I'm wondering, because I also lived in California, in Southern California, in the LA area, so I'm wondering, is it primarily the social issues, the cultural issues that make a lot of those really hardcore liberals so hardcore liberal? Is it the gay issues, the abortion issues? Is that what's really driving it? Climate change being another one? Would you say that that is more important to your typical liberal than the fiscal issues, our economy, our national security?
I think so. I think that the left has done a very good job, especially with my generation, our generation and younger, painting themselves as the side of compassion. And I think most people, myself included, fancy themselves compassionate people. And easy to get sucked into that. And I think we're all feeling the economy right now, but leftists, liberals, new liberals, they have an answer for that as well, that the problem is capitalism and, the problem's climate change and all of this. And it's really doom and gloom. So it's not exactly a bright message that people would want to glom onto. But I think in a lot of ways, my generation and younger generations, we haven't had really that ability to take a big part in activism. It's like all of the civil rights were already achieved by the time that we got here. And I think a lot of my generation is lost. Obviously, we're godless in many ways. And I do believe, as others have said before me, that if you don't believe in God, you're going to find somebody or something to replace him. And that is what the left has done. And certainly, I think they have a great messaging on all of the social issues and being the side of tolerance and compassion.
Yeah. They're so tolerant, as you have found out since you've walked away from the Democrat Party.
Absolutely.
Actually, the least tolerant people out there, the most hateful people I've ever met are liberals that are very active liberals, very politically active liberals, in their minds at least. I don't know if they really do much other than be just absolutely ferocious with their ideas and their ideologies. But I want to talk about COVID again. I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about the COVID era for good reason, because we'd all like to forget it. But I was really confused during the COVID era because I lived in LA, right? I was with a lot of people that everything was organic. We don't want anyone to tell us what to do. The man is awful. We want to be free as a bird. We want to go out into the water and hike, and we want to eat bugs and, play on rocks. I mean, that's like the liberal hippy dippy lifestyle. But then those are the same people that so quickly put on 1 to 2 masks, stayed in their homes, and then got 1, 2, 3, 4 shots. Was that surprising to you? Because I know that you had an awakening, but for others, were you surprised to see liberals taking the side of big pharma and also sitting in their homes being afraid of the nature that they proclaim to love?
I was very surprised, yes. And I cannot really even describe now why it is that more people, I know for a fact a lot of people had some type of awakening in 2020, even in liberal Los Angeles. I've met so many online and in person, but I wish that more had woken up, for lack of a better phrase. I can't tell you why they didn't. And it did surprise me. Admittedly, I was on board at first. I should have probably immediately been clued into something's wrong here, but I was too ignorant, and I did everything that they said. And then it was really summer 2020 when there was just such blatant hypocrisy in the response to COVID versus the response to the BLM unrest. That's what really turned me. But at first I was on board. And like I said, I think it's a cult. I know it's a cult, and I think they do a good job of, this is what you do to be a compassionate person. This is what you do to do your part and the collective. And a lot of people fell for it, and they fall for it still.
So my last question for you, you had an awakening, but what can you do? What can I do? What can conservatives do to really facilitate that awakening for others? I make fun of liberals all the time, right? I find it funny. I call them green-haired weirdos. That's just, it's a shtick, it's a bit that I have, right? But I also do want to convince more liberals like yourself that they should be on the side of capitalism and freedom and national security and patriotism. But I'm wondering, coming from somebody who was not in so distant future a liberal, what can conservatives do to better bring people into our tent? Because I don't know if what we're doing currently is working.
I would agree with you. That's a big question, obviously. I think continuing to speak common sense, that will always win out in the end. I do think that conservatives, Republicans have to get on board with really trying to reach Generation Z, especially more effectively. I think we saw that with the midterms. And again, that's a place where Democrats have us beat right now. And we need to focus on that. I really believe that we need to start creating more culture. And I admit that I'm part of the problem with that. I love what I do. I think I have an effective voice, an effective message, an interesting story a lot of people can relate to. But a lot of times, self-included, conservatives are reacting to the insanity of the left, to the culture that they dictate. And there's very little of us creating our own culture, creating our own movies, our own parallel economy. Rumble's great, all of that. But I think there's a big untapped market. And also liberals, especially young liberal women, young people in general, and I'm not happy to say this, they are very unhappy, more unhappy than ever before. So I don't think they're entrenched in this belief. I think it just has a hold on them right now, but there is a big opening for conservatives to come back, revitalize the American dream, and offer that to young people. And we just have to step in and do it. And I believe we can.
I believe we can too, but it's going to be an uphill battle. We've got a lot of hearts and minds to change, and we've got a lot of fixing to do. But I agree with you. You know, we can't just sit back and talk about how ridiculous the left is. We have to show that freedom is always the side to be on. Natalie, I'm so happy that you came over to the right side of history, and I'm so happy that you're on our side now to convince more people. Thank you for your message. Thank you for being so bold, and I hope to talk to you again soon.